Anderson, and this award went to the Carter family, who basically invented country music.
This year's
This award went to the Carter family, who basically invented country music.
this year's AMA nom-
Of all of the things in the world that have never happened, that has never happened the most. That is the most didn't happen shit of all time.
You're absolutely right. It's 100% false. You simply won't find a single reputable article to tell you otherwise. Guys, we should really just pack it up because we're not going to find any resources to tell us. Not one historical resource. New or old. You simply will not find one. It talks about the deep legacy of Black people and country music. No such resource exists. No such articles exist. Zero. Guys, we're simply not going to find a reputable source to follow that claim. Guys, we might as well give up. We're not going to find any reputable sources. Not one.
I'm going to play Freight Train, and I'm going to play it in the style of cotton picking style. That's with two fingers. This finger and that one, and my thumb. That's two fingers, see. And when you play with three, it's a ragtime style, but I'm going to play this in cotton picking style. Freight train runs so fast. Freight train runs so fast. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I'm gone.
How exactly did country music become associated with whiteness? Well, today we're going to talk about it, and if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at OneMicHistory.com. But without further ado, let's get started. Country music, which started in the rural areas of the American South, is often seen as a music genre that is strongly linked to white culture. It seems to match the lives and feelings of white Americans, with stories in country music often deal with sadness, love, loss, and country life. Along with how it's presented to the media, it can seem as if it's deeply associated with whiteness. However, the story of country music isn't solely rooted in white culture. In fact, Black musicians and their traditions have significantly shaped the genre since its inception. When country music was born, it drew inspiration from a vast variety of musical styles, significantly those of African Americans. It is often overlooked. Cultural contribution is evident in the various aspects of country music, from the instruments to the song choices to the vocal and instrumental techniques. This rich influence can be compared to the impact of Black musicians have had on other genres like rock, jazz, and pop music. However, largely due to business decisions by predominantly white music execs, Black artists have been almost exclusively excluded from country music. One of the earliest influence on the creation of country music came directly from African culture, and that's the banjo. Originating in West African societies, this instrument was brought to America by African enslaved people. These early banjos were made from gourds and had a special design with a drum-like body and strings of different lengths. The banjo evolved in America and started to include features common to European string instruments, like a flat fingerboard and tuning pegs. The iconic banjo that we recognize today has 4 strings, with 3 long ones running the length of the instrument and a short thumb string. By the 1840s, only Black people were seen playing the banjo, but minstrel shows became popular during the 1850s, and white performers started playing the banjo, mocking Black culture. These shows became a huge hit, and soon the banjo was adopted by white audiences, setting the stage for the rise of hillbilly music in the early 1920s. Besides the banjo, Black cultural influence, many early country songs were inspired by Black spirituals, work songs, and the blues, each capturing the struggle and faith of enslaved people. Furthermore, several songs performed by the first hillbilly musicians were adapted by black artists. In fact, popular country music songs were inspired by a hymn arranged by a black minister. Even though our nation was super segregated during the 1920s and 30s, black and white musicians would often collaborate on records. A famous example of this is Jimmie Rodgers, one of the fathers of country music, who teamed up with Louis Armstrong, a legendary jazz musician, for Blue Yodel No. 9 in 1929. This shows that both artists were drawing from the same musical well, even though they came from different genres. After World War I, there were about 50 black singers and musicians that were a part of popular hillbilly records. As country music grew in popularity, particularly among white Southerners, record companies saw a profitable opportunity in country music. They thought it wouldn't be successful if it was seen as racially integrated. As a result, the black artists who helped make previous records successful were no longer credited for their work. Instead, album covers featured white artists. And then country music began to be marketed solely as white music. This pushed black musicians like Leslie Riddle and Rufus Payne, who greatly influenced their white counterparts with their musical styles, to the sidelines. So as white Southerners moved north, they brought country music along with them, fortifying the idea in people's minds that country music was a genre for only white people. Yet, black musicians' impact left an indelible mark on country music. The Fisk Jubilee Singers from Nashville's Fisk University were instrumental in shaping the genre sound through their performances of Negro spirituals. D4 Bailey's harmonica skills added depth to country music, making him a star in the early days of the Grand Ole Opry. D4 Bailey, whose parents were enslaved, emerged as a star on the barn dance radio shows broadcast in Nashville's WSM station. His incredible performances of songs like Pan American Blues and The Fox Chase won the hearts of listeners across the South. In fact, his music played a huge part in the creation of the Grand Ole Opry in 1927, a stage that would become a cornerstone of country music. Bailey became one of the earliest members of the Grand Ole Opry and was one of its most frequent performers. However, despite his popularity and talent, Bailey's journey was not easy. His race was often concealed from radio audiences, and while he was on tour at the Opry, he faced the harsh realities of segregation across the South, leading to difficulties finding places to stay and seen as more of a mascot than a respected artist. Sadly, even Bailey's relationship with the Grand Ole Opry and the broader music industry soured over time. He was unceremoniously fired in 1941, and George D. Hay, the founder of the Opry, later remarked that Bailey was lazy in a comment that not only reflected his racial prejudice, but also disregarded Bailey's contribution to the Grand Ole Opry. Succeeding Bailey was Charley Pride. Charley Pride was one of the first really famous black country artists. He emerged in the 1960s. Despite his incredible talent, Pride faced a lot of challenges solely based on his race. During this time period, records were often divided by race. There were race records by black artists for black listeners, and then there was white music. This segregation of the music industry made it hard for black country musicians like Pride to gain recognition that they so readily deserved. This trend of minimizing the achievements of black country artists carried on into the mid-20s. As country music grew in popularity, it was often seen as rural and white to appeal to a predominantly white audience. But with the racial prejudice of the 60s also came increased awareness of the civil rights movement and the realization that the contributions of black artists had been largely ignored in country music scene. This led to efforts to recognize and honor black artists that shaped the genre. Charley Pride became the first black artist to be inducted in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and Ray Charles, a significant figure in the world of music as a whole, blended country with R&B and pop and changed the country music scene forever. Today, modern country music has experienced significant influence from black music genres like hip-hop and R&B, leading to its evolution into a multifaceted genre. This musical blending has resulted in a richer country music landscape, underscored by its variety of cultural influences. However, challenges persist for Black artists in this musical sphere. Representation and inclusion remain areas that demand attention, as Black artists often struggle for visibility and a fair recognition in the country music scene. In response to these challenges, movements like the Black Opry have taken strides to promote Black artists and diversify the genre. The Black Opry is a grassroots initiative focused on highlighting Black talent. In this genre, it offers a stage to Black artists, making a remarkable change to the largely white-centered narrative of country music that exists. This effort makes it clear that the future of country music involves a continued effort to break down barriers relating to race, but there is still a lot of work to be done. For instance, the Black Opry's founder, Holly G, would point out the current state of feelings towards the genre. As a country music fan, I don't feel safe in country music spaces, and it doesn't surprise me that Black people are hesitant to be a part of this space. It's also crucial to note that throughout the history of country music, Black women have almost entirely been left out. This is largely because Black women face both racism and sexism and were given no platform at all to break into the industry. The first Black woman to enter the country music scene and gain commercial success was Linda Martell, who released an album, Color Me Country, in 1970. Recently, though, there have been more Black female artists entering the country music scene, but they still face issues of discrimination. But there's some renewed interest created by Beyonce's introduction into the country music scene, and hope that this excitement and anticipation will carry into broader representation within the genre. Holly G once again points out that there's such variety within Black country music, and this diversity is what I hope others will ultimately see and appreciate. In the end, Black people have long made contributions to...
I don't know if you can think of a people who were more held back, more deprived, more sabotaged than African Americans. You took everything away from them and took them away from everything. They started in your country at less than zero, literally regarded and treated as subhuman, not allowed to learn to read or write or anything for hundreds of years. But you see, they come from a people of accomplishment to one degree or another, not a people of piracy and theft and appropriation. They come from a people who created and built and developed in their own land. And even though you did everything that you could possibly do to suppress them, to hold them down, to hold them back, and you're still doing that until today, nevertheless, I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that African Americans have become a global cultural superpower. Culturally, they're a superpower. Whatever cultural soft power that America has in the global South, it's African American.
How did country music get so white?
We look at the industry now that is birthed out of these Black genres, these Black musical traditions, and it's really stolen from our people because they don't get to participate in the wealth that's being built here now.
The origins of country music are very Black. I mean, the banjo is literally a West African instrument. From Black church gospel to hillbilly folk songs, much of the sound of country music is a collaboration between Black and white people. In many ways, country music could have been the poster child for racial unity in America. Instead, Black country musicians have largely been left out of the picture, on purpose. But these Black country music stars plan to change that.
Being Black in America puts something in your soul to where you sing the song a little different.
Country music was simple to me and it told stories.
We just want to join the story.
Amazon Music's new documentary for Love and Country is an absolutely stunning deep dive into the history of country music and the challenges that Black country musicians face in trying to break through. This film is powerful, it's gripping, it's beautifully shot, it's a must watch. Check it out.
For many historians, the origins of modern-day country music begin with bluegrass. Bluegrass relies on the acoustic sounds of string instruments, and the banjo is a staple. The banjo is a West African instrument brought over in the 1600s via the transatlantic slave trade. The instruments were originally made out of boards and had been popular in the region way before American slavery started. Other instruments like the fiddle and tambourine were also integral to bluegrass and also had links to Africa. Now, as enslaved Africans were forced into the Americas, they continued to make these instruments. But Black influence didn't stop there. Work calls and chants became lyrics to these sounds, and these chants, also known as spirituals, help to tell stories, keep the pace, and secretly spread information. For example, the songs of the Underground Railroad had secret coded directions to help slaves escape to the north. Fast forward a few hundred years and take this lyrical storytelling element with this acoustic string sound, and you got the foundation of country music. Now, while these spirituals were essential to a slave's motivation, survival, and possible freedom, how did this music enter into mainstream white Southern culture? The answer? Blackface. By the 1800s, music created by black people became popular within mainstream white music, and minstrel shows helped bring these songs to the spotlight. Well, sort of. Well, let me explain. You see, minstrel shows were like OG American theater. They usually would consist of variety comedy shows. Think SNL, but like super racist. Since black performers weren't allowed in white spaces, white performers would paint their faces black, play the banjo, fiddle, and other bluegrass instruments, and perform satirical slave songs and dances. They would do skits and speeches in exaggerated black Southern dialects. So essentially, they stripped African slaves of their tribal cultures, made it illegal for them to speak their native language, made reading English punishable by lashings or worse, and then created a theatrical art form to make fun of them for the music and dialects they were forced to create for themselves. Yep, that's about right. Minstrel shows helped solidify a lot of negative black stereotypes, and it was still seen in film all the way up to the mid-20th century. But despite the overall harm the satirical genre did for the black community, black music was starting to be taken seriously by white people for the first time, and mainly because it was introduced to them in this non-threatening way. Unfortunately, there was no credit or representation given to the black artists that helped create the music. Another precursor to modern-day country music and a lot of other genres was the blues, which got its start in the 1860s as minstrel shows were starting to come down from their peak. The sad, sultry minor tones within the slave spirituals made its way into the genre. These spirituals' call and response-based lyrics were a way to create more unity and inclusion within the music experience, and that carried over into blues as well. Now, there are tons and tons of black blues artists, but many of them didn't get white mainstream acceptance until the following century, and even then, they weren't given the same performance privileges as their white counterparts. And this inequality was the same in many other genres that were developing during the 20th century, like jazz, rock, and yeah, country. There has been and continue to be black country artists. Country music is a blend of many different cultures and genres, but history doesn't always reflect this. Things get a little messy once you learn that these iconic white artists actually got their trade from other black artists. Hank Williams was mentored by Rufus T. Tot Payne, Johnny Cash was taught from an early age by Gus Cannon, and black guitar player Leslie Riddle was known as one of the pioneers of the finger-picking guitar style, favored by Maybelle Carter. And while legal segregation has been outlawed in the United States since the 1960s, Americans still have trouble giving black artists credit within the country genre. Moving into the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, black country artists weren't charting, and country music had been seen socially as a white genre. And internalized prejudice within music management didn't really help. In 1998, general manager of Curb Records, Dennis Hannon, insisted that, quote, for country music to be more well-rounded, we would like to see more African-American artists. But he also said, if it is harder for African-American artists to break into the industry, it's more of a lifestyle issue. Likewise, in 2006, Tammy Genovese of the Country Music Association rejected a reporter's suggestion that the industry had not attempted to gain black fans, telling The Guardian, quote, the black community's lifestyle is different from what we communicate with country music. Black people have their own types of music that they listen to, be that jazz, hip-hop, or whatever. Country singers in Nashville formed to create the Black Country Music Association in the mid-1990s in hopes of giving Black artists an avenue into the genre. Country singer Cleve Francis was one of the founders and described the Nashville country music industry as one based solely on, quote, permission when it came to the Black artists there. Francis himself had suffered from racism in the industry, especially at the hands of those who were supposed to be in charge of marketing and managing his career. Despite these attempts at inclusion, the genre today still faces hardships when it comes to representation. Atlanta rapper Lil Nas X shattered records with his debut hit Old Town Road in 2019. From the topic to the twangy tone, it was, as his producer described, a country rap song.
I got the horses in the back, horse stock is attached. Head is matted black, got the bushes black to match.
And at first, Billboard agreed. He was ranked on the Billboard country charts before Billboard decided to retract his ranking and exclude him from the category. Billboard told Rolling Stone, quote, "While Old Town Road incorporates references to country and cowboy imagery, it does not embrace enough elements of today's country music to chart in its current version." This was definitely not the first time a hip-hop artist attempted to enter into country and was rejected. Nelly and Tim McGraw, both Southern artists, made Over and Over in 2004. It made not even a blip on the country charts. Beyonce's Daddy Lessons on Lemonade was a textbook country bop. The song's thematic storytelling and use of traditional country instrumentals fit well into the genre, which led her to performing the song at the 2016 CMAs. But country fans were pissed. According to the AP, Beyonce also tried to submit the record for a country Grammy, and the submission was rejected. But this sort of exclusion doesn't stop at hip-hop or R&B artists attempting to enter into the country space. Mickey Guyton, a rising Black female country artist, has commented both on the racism that faces Black country artists and also the industry's sexism.
If you think we live in the land of the free, you should try to be black like me.
She said, quote, "I don't even realize how crazy what I'm doing is. It really is hard for women to get played on country radio, period. Do I face extra obstacles? Absolutely." From the slave trade to Beyonce, Black people have been shaping and contributing to country music since the start. And while the United States has made some progress in Black representation in some genres of music and entertainment, it's important that history provides a holistic depiction of all of our contributions. Because Black history is American history.
Let's talk about how country music was created by Black people. Now, there's a myth that you've been taught. You've been taught that country music is the music of white Southerners. The truth is that country music originated among enslaved Africans. Let's start with the banjo. The banjo is an important part of country music. Yet, this instrument originated from West African lutes, which were instruments that were brought to America by enslaved Africans. In fact, the banjo is an African instrument that was an integral part of slave music. Country music is based on the song of the enslaved person. However, country music was labeled as hillbilly music and then was marketed as for whites and not Blacks. Black country singers received no credit for their music. Banjos were used at festivals and contests were held that Black people were not allowed to participate in. And even the sound was modeled after songs by enslaved Africans. Country music is not white people music.
Why do you think that people associate country with whiteness and not with Black people?
I think it has a lot to do with the Southern culture and how Southern culture gets seen as being white. So for me, it's like, okay, when you think about how Black folks talk, there's a lot of ways to how we express ourselves that's usually seen as being very irrational. But when we start to do it and got a little flavor in it, it gets, you know what I'm saying, kind of circumvented, it gets taken. For me, thinking about country music in the South, it's like, okay, this is the music that comes from down here, and down here, we don't give credit to Black folks for nothing. You see what I'm saying? So when you think about like country or rock and roll, it's like you can't think about a Southern Black position without thinking about how this position infused these two genres. Well, down here, we ain't giving credit for nothing but Black folks, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I'm gonna take the production, forget the producer, and say it's mine.
What people don't know is that the original term cowboy was a derogatory term.
See, the white man was the cattleman. The black man was the cowboy. He used to say, hey, boy, go get that cow there, cowboy.
People that weren't black that were called cowboys, it was an insult. They would call them ranch hands, cow punch, or whatever. But a cowboy was a name exclusively for the black people or the slaves that took care of the cows.
And then, but the name got to be so popular that the whites start calling themselves cowboy also. So what became a nickname, what was a nickname for a black, became a popular name for all the cowboys.
So it must have been something about the way the original cowboys did their job that made that term become popular, or it made it be an honor to be a cowboy.
It was never packed. Did your boots stop working? Did your truck break?
Oh, sweetheart, bless your heart. Bless your heart with this one, honey. Let me tell you something, honey. I'm from Texas and I'm a white woman, so maybe you'll actually listen to what I have to say. Being upset about people appropriating Southern culture and starting at Beyonce is a very interesting choice. Some might even go as far as to say it's a very racist choice. But that's why you made the video, isn't it? Anything for those views, huh? Anything for the likes. First of all, Beyonce's from Texas, and she's always been very proudly from Texas. Beyonce grew up with a very Southern family, and she's always paid homage to her roots in Texas, even though she is a pop singer. Secondly, jazz, the blues, rock music, and country music were created by black people and black communities. You don't have to like it, but that is the fact of the matter. Third of all, Beyonce is more legitimate of a country artist than 99% of the country artists nowadays. None of these people actually live the life of most people who grew up in the South. And not only that, you want to talk about stealing influences? Most country music nowadays has a fucking trap beat. I'm listening to new country music, which is never a personal choice, but whenever I'm forced to do it, I'm like, why does this country song have a trap beat to it? Fourthly and finally, everyone's appropriating Southern culture nowadays. You know how many people are wearing Carhartt? Where I'm from, Carhartt is the only you can only find that at a Tractor Supply store. And now people are like fashion bros are wearing Carhartt. Carhartt is the thing to wear, okay? It wasn't Supreme, but there was like this Walmart brand that became popular and became like a hype beast brand. But it was a Walmart brand that I grew up having to wear because the only place we had to shop was Walmart. We lived in the middle of bumfuck nowhere, and even then, the closest Walmart was like a 25-minute drive. Just to wrap up my thoughts here, it's a new day, but no one had an issue when Lady Gaga created her country album. What about that part? No one had an issue when Lady Gaga created her country album. What about that part? Am I making that up? Am I making that in my head? Isn't that, Stay Joanne? Is that not Jolene? Joanne? Whatever the fuck? I didn't hear y'all say anything about that.
After watching the Beyonce concert and you, digest it, one of the things that made me, I was tearing up, on the big screen, the announcer said,
I want to hear an American porn.
I was tearing up. Because I'm an immigrant. I wasn't born here. Watching that, black people really did the big one on this here America. The biggest one. Y'all created something amazing down here. And I don't, I'm not going to get into some people are ashamed of being black and black culture. They think black culture is one thing. But with these acts, you see that it's not true. But y'all did such... y'all really fucking survived this motherfucking place, man. Y'all survived this fucking place that tried to kill you so many times. So many different ways. Y'all fucking survived. Despite all of that, you created wonderful shit. Created art from your pain. Every single decade, you kept upping the ante with new genres, new dances, new shit to consume. To distract you from the crap that's going on. Y'all really fucking survived it. And your art proves it's a story of the struggles. It's a story of your survivals. You really fucking did it.
And especially the African American experience. It's literally not duplicated anywhere on earth in history. African Americans are a completely unique phenomenon as a people. Who they are culturally, what their history is, what their experience is, isn't duplicated anywhere on earth. You don't know where you came from. You don't know what country you came from. You don't know what culture you came from. You don't know what language you came from. You don't know what your religion was before. You, like I've said before, you're more American than anyone because you don't have any other identity. Actually, your entire identity is American based. That's not the case of anyone else. I'm Irish American. I'm German American. I'm Italian American. I'm Jewish American. I'm this or that, the other. You can say African American, but you don't know anything about Africa. You don't even know which part of Africa. Africans don't call themselves that because I know my tribe. I have my language. I have my region, my country, my whatever. Like me saying European American. I'm not European. I'm specifically Irish and German. But you can't say that. You are American. You're the original Americans. You know? Everyone else is immigrants. You can't even be called immigrants. You know? You're originally American. And your culture is as close to being the indigenous culture of America as there can be without you being the indigenous people. You know? You're the indigenous people of the entity called America, called the United States of America. Everything else came from elsewhere. Your culture is the only one that came from right there because you were cut off from everything else. You know, there's nobody else like that. There's nobody else like that in the world. There's no other culture like that in the world.
Yo, I kid you not, I said this to my roommate this morning, that the Cowboy Carter album by Beyonce is a reclamation of country music. And it's really the ancestors. It's really the ancestors, because how the fuck did that happen? To those who don't know, I just learned this morning, that in the country music community, they attribute the creation of country music to this group right here, the Carters. Obviously, they are white. But by Beyonce naming the Cowboy Carter album Cowboy Carter, I think that's a reclamation of the roots of country, because we all know it was created by the African American community of the South.
So we've all seen Beyonce rocking the American flag now for weeks and weeks, pretty much since Cowboy Carter came out. And I had pretty much assumed that the reason she was doing that was to reclaim the American flag because it has become a symbol for Republicans, for conservatives, almost a symbol of hate in a lot of ways, because the people who feel most proud wearing it and waving it are the same people who call for a regression of rights for Black people and gay people and women and everything else. So the symbol has almost become a symbol of hate. And I saw Beyonce choosing to wear it and rock it and put it in her, album cover and everything else as her reclaiming it as a symbol of freedom for herself. But when I saw her, opening up for the Olympics with her song and of course rocking all of the American flag paraphernalia, I thought about her lyric in Sweet Honey Buckin', where she says, "I wear that shit that I know start a trend," right? And I realized she is not wearing the American flag to reclaim it for herself. She's wearing it to reclaim it for us. She's hoping it becomes a trend for us, for the marginalized, for the people who have come to equate that flag with hatred, because that's how we've seen it used, and realize, oh no, it belongs to us too. It belongs to Black people. It belongs to gay people. It belongs to brown people. It's not just theirs, it's ours. And in fact, what is more American than being Black? Our ancestors literally built this country, okay? It was built on our labor. It gets no more American than that. And so I just feel like it really came together for me when I saw her for the Olympics in her American garb, realizing, oh, she's not just reclaiming it for her, she's reclaiming it for us. And I feel like it's just going to really take off even more with Kamala being the nominee. I feel like we are all starting to feel a sense of patriotism almost that we haven't been able to feel in a long time. So anyway, I just kind of just put that together, and it's making me feel really good and honestly making me want to go out and get an American flag, which I haven't felt any sort of desire to do ever.
You're learning so many important things, and I'm so proud of you.
Okay, so I really hate the term monitoring spirit, but I can tell you one spiritual term that I really don't disagree with, and that's destiny swapping. Like, that one's actually a thing, like, in my opinion. Just my opinion. If you don't know what destiny swapping is, it's basically this concept where someone tries to like take on your destiny as their own. Like, it is like when you meet someone and they really want to be you. Like, they want what they see. They want your nachos. Someone trying to destiny swap you, they will like constantly mimic like the things that you do. They're going to try and like take on the things you want. I had a friend, I won't speak too much on this, but a friend, I was like, I always wanted a rabbit, for example. I was like, I want a pet rabbit. I didn't get a chance to get a pet rabbit because this person rushed and went to go get a rabbit themselves. Like, they were constantly kind of mimicking the things I did. They admired the things I did. Like, they were constantly shitting on the things I did, but going to go and do the same thing. Like, when I told them I wanted a rabbit, they were kind of like saying like, that's so silly and ridiculous. And then a couple weeks later, they pop up with one. Like, people, destiny swapping is called destiny swapping for a reason. Like, they want to take what you have, and it's no shade. Like, when you have a light, and I'm not trying to be funny, but when you have a light, like, you attract a lot of stuff. And sometimes it's people who don't really know how to use their own light on their own, and they will try to dim yours and take yours from you. I hope that makes sense and isn't too woo-woo. But yeah.
What we're seeing right now in real time is the contract, the Destiny Work contract that they signed to essentially steal, co-op, and pillage this world for its resources, its culture, its spiritual elevation. The contract is running out. That's why they acting up. I don't know how long that contract was to be for. The Hebrew Israelites talking about it's 400 years. I think, honestly, that contract was only going to last as long as Black people were going to be asleep. If you haven't noticed, there has been an overwhelming exodus out of the church, okay? This isn't to say that some of y'all not going to church, okay? But there's an overwhelming exodus of Black people leaving the church, as well as there is an overwhelming amount of white folks who are starting to understand the truth of what's going on. Stolen Legacy academically explains it best. That destiny swap that they did with us, it was to obtain the knowledge that it took Africans thousands of years to evolve to. There are just certain things spiritually that they just could not understand. And they were up. And here's the thing, just like right now, when are afraid, when they don't understand something, rather than sit the fuck down and calm down, they get violent. And that's exactly what they did. When they were kicked out of Egypt multiple times before y'all famous little Plato and Socrates motherfuckers came into Africa, y'all was kicked out because you were spiritually immature. You were spiritually immature. Mind you, the issue that the Africans had with y'all back then was not because of race. It was because you were so spiritually immature. If you didn't understand something, you immediately resort to violence. And here you are today, 1,000+ years later, you don't understand something and you resort to violence. The destiny swap that you've done on Black folk has run its course, okay? Black people in this country resting, that right there, we are taking our own shit back. We're taking our own spirituality back. Us resting is us intentionally breaking the generational curses. We are not waiting for no savior to come and save us. That is what y'all try to lie to us, to keep us in this cycle, to keep us confeeding the destiny swap that you sign off on us. And now Black people are no longer going to participate in the fuckery that y'all have installed. And now the chaos that you've created, the lies, the matrix that you've created is crumbling. And here's the thing. What scares me about y'all is that you know this is happening. Your spirit is telling you that this is happening. That's why you're upset that Black people are not protesting with y'all, we're not communicating with y'all, we're not doing none of those things, because you are understanding who we really are. And we are coming to understand who we really are. We are breaking our own generational curses, and y'all are not ready for that. And what I advise my Black family, continue to evolve. There's a spiritual elevation that we are all taking part in. Just rest. Just rest. Stay in your home. Love on your family. Plant your gardens. Do your thing and rest. The Destiny Swap contract has run its course. Everything's gonna be okay.
Hell yeah, man. Congratulations, dude. That's amazing. Hell yeah.
Wonderful to celebrate country music. And it's wonderful to celebrate the modern Black people participating in country music today. But it's also really important to know that Black people have been contributing to country in Nashville for over 100 years. I arrived in Nashville, Tennessee, almost exactly 40 years ago. And much of that time has been spent chasing down the stories of Black country and the Black West. The stories that come to tell the untold history of Black country music. I'm an unusual professor, scholar, that I work in the areas where I also create. Of my 40 years in Black country music, as a Black woman in country music, as a writer, as a screenwriter, and as a professor, I spend a part of my time seeing if the archives and if the scholarly record can affirm what oral history is telling us, and seeing whether oral history can tell us things that the scholarly record needs to pursue. When we come to understand that the banjo is an instrument that has its roots in Africa, and the banjo is the foundation of modern bluegrass music, we come to understand that there is more Black presence and influence in all aspects of American culture than we sometimes think. Another thing is cowboy music has had a huge influence. In fact, it was originally called country and western. A lot of people don't know that 20 to 30% of all cowboys were people of color, Black and brown. The first superstar of the Grand Ole Opry was a Black man, D. Fort Bailey. And that Black man was a fourth generation Black country music player by his own description. Nashville has continued to be a very, very important place in the life of Black country. So we are going to have all the greats of Black country. Charlie Pride, D. Fort Bailey, Ray Charles, even Aretha Franklin are going to be on the stage at the Ryman. When we discover that Blue Yodel No. 9, which is considered to be the most iconic country song of all time by many scholars and many performers, it changes things when we understand that Lil Hardin Armstrong, a Black woman born in Memphis, Tennessee, played on every bar of Blue Yodel No. 9. Changes our understanding of Nashville to know that Lil attended Fisk University and studied in this city. But there's no plaque for Lil Hardin Armstrong in Nashville today, so it reminds us that we have to complete the told stories. It is interesting that country music that has, as I say, cannot exist without Black influences, is perceived as being a white form. I think it's so important to look at Black country because so much Black genius has been erased. I am really grateful for the people who came ahead of me, who never lived to see their work studied by scholars in their lifetime, who never lived to be honored, and who made my presence in this city easier because they had gone ahead of me. I love how scholars can help support honoring oral history and public memory. And that's what I have done, is chase down and found that actually a lot of what I heard, it turned out to be true. There are so many unseen ways and unseen brown and black Americans who contributed to country music, whose stories are yet to be found. I hope somebody's going out and finding those stories.
If you want to understand why Black artists in country music are having such a major breakthrough right now, look no further than their experience. Hi, my name is Pablo, and as country music is going through this authenticity resurgence, Black artists are absolutely going to be a massive part of that. Historically, Black artists have had the toughest time breaking through to the mainstream in country music. That's because of country music's deep history with racism and gatekeepers not believing that Black artists can be a viable commodity within country music. For a long time, the only Black country artist that gained any sort of prominence was Charley Pride. Charley Pride was not the first Black artist in country music, but he was the first Black artist to reach the amount of success that he ended up having. And initially, he did this by not putting out any press photos of what he looked like. But once people found out he was Black, a lot of radio stations did not play his music, and a lot of promoters were hesitant to book him for shows. It was Charley Pride's music that helped him break this color barrier. Instead of singing sad songs that was traditionally associated with country music, he made a lot more positive music. Music that didn't focus on what race he was, but instead his experience as just a human being like the rest of us. But we wouldn't see this type of success repeated again until the early to mid 2000s, when lead singer of college radio rock band Hootie and the Blowfish, named Darius Rucker, decided to go solo and make country music. For years, Darius Rucker was the only prominent figure in country music that was Black, and while he saw massive amounts of success, it was hard to see this be repeated again. That was until the pandemic, when Mickey Guyton, who had been making music in country music since 2014, released Black Like Me, amidst BLM protests and the racial reckoning that happened during the pandemic came along. The song saw her break through the country charts and became the first Black woman nominated for a country Grammy, and became the first Black woman to host the CMA Award. And as Mickey Guyton broke through, in large part thanks to social media and building a solid fan base and platform there, a lot of other artists began to break through as well. Of course, Old Town Road did help out, but Old Town Road was still straddling this line between country and rap music. But we started seeing artists like Raina Roberts break through, who wasn't making this country rap kind of music, but instead just making straight country music, talking about her experience growing up as a Black woman in the South. We saw artists like Brittany Spencer speaking directly to her experience about what it was like for her to grow up, and her authenticity really shined through. Artists like One the Duo, who is a mother-daughter group, showing us that country music has been thriving in Black communities for decades and is passed down through generations. Then we have artists like Tanner Adele, who's making songs like Buckle Bunny and Trailer Park Barbie, music that speaks to her authentic experience being a Black woman in the South and growing up like a lot of, for lack of better words, rednecks. Just like the resurgence of outlaw country, what's propelling this music to break through to millions and millions of people is the fact that these people are all speaking to their authentic experience as Black people who happen to enjoy making and listening to country music. It's artists like these that are not taking major country labels' refusal to sign them as a definitive answer of who they have to be as artists or how large they can develop an audience. Of course, there are men who have already broken through to the mainstream country stage like Kane Brown and Jimmy Allen, who are showing that country music can be made by anyone and still resonate with millions upon millions of people. It's a great time to be a Black person who loves country. It's a great time to be a Black person who makes country music. And even though we see some mainstream country artists like Maren Morris exiting the country music scene, we also see a lot of people who are willing to break down doors and hold the door open for those coming up after them.
Yo, I'm not sure if y'all listen to country music, but here are 6 Black country artists that you need to be listening to right now.
One artist who's truly making a name for himself is Shabuzi. He's from Virginia and is already getting cosigns from people like Timbaland and Diplo. His recent song, Let It Burn, is gaining national attention, along with being featured on Duckworth's song, which was inside of the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie. Along with Shabuzi, there are several Black country artists who are making a way right now. Check out this list.
There when heaven doors open up, bikini all denim with the diamond dust.
Well, I started off early, I was cutting grass, I was throwing suds on my neighbor's Cadillac. Dinner time came and I was hauling scrap, about dead tired by the time it got back. Had a couple fresh 20s burning holes in my pocket, I threw them in the closet in an old shoebox. I said I want you, baby, over and give, baby, that's my little night, it might just get a little crazy.
I wanna know how it sounds when the words are coming
living a lie. Oh, time flies, so don't blink twice.
Newsflash, all American imagery is Black imagery. Black stories are American stories. Black history is American history. Black culture is American culture. There is no us without America, and there's no America without us. I really hate to see Beyonce perform. I can't stand when she does it because the 10,000 think pieces on her art and on being Black that come with that are just so annoying.
Undertone of nationalism that I think it's really important that we pick up on. It's further evidenced by the fact that there were people who, after watching that performance, said that they felt proud to be an American in a way that they normally don't, because they normally feel like that pride is only reserved for white people. Beyonce chose to use the red, white, and blue stars and stripes imagery for this project. She didn't have to. There are other flags, there are other images that represent Black Americans and Black American history.
I've seen so many think pieces online about Beyonce and the nationalism that she is doing because she chose to use the American flag in her album imagery and in her performance imagery. And it's one of the things where we start getting to people having opinions on things without actually basing their opinion with historical context and nuance. It's absolutely okay and within the right of every single descendant of slaves, foundational Black American in this country to be proud to be American and to be proud of the American flag. As Black people, to come on and criticize another Black person for being proud of where they're from just adds to the erasure of who we are as Americans in our own country. For so long, we've been taught that we are other, that white people are American. And we see this, how this plays out within the diaspora, within the Black British people talking about us, Caribbean people talking about us, Africans talking about us, and they see America as a white place. And because we're from there, it's, oh, they don't know where they're from. They don't know their history. They don't know anything. Meanwhile, we're 7 to 8, 10, 15 generations in building this country. The very foundation of music and of so much of the world's consumed culture today was formulated in America by Black Americans, obviously with influence from Europeans and with natives, but wholly Black American art impacts the world. So why would we not be proud of what we've developed, building this country for free, our ancestors dying here, us developing our own ethnic group here? There's nothing to be ashamed of. And two things can be true, right? We could be from a country that is this capitalistic regime that has caused issues throughout the world. That is true, but it does not change the fact that this is where we're from. Everyone else can be proud of where they're from, but we can't. That doesn't ring well with me. It doesn't make sense, especially when so much of American culture is stolen from Black people and repackaged as white culture and American. So when we have some reclamation in that and we try to reclaim it, it is met with this weird myopic view that only the Black American flag should be used. Only Black imagery should be used. Newsflash, all American imagery is Black imagery. American stories, Black stories are American stories. Black history is American history. Black culture is American culture. There is no us without America, and there's no America without us. And while everyone has the right to choose how they feel patriotic or how they feel about who they are, you do not get to downplay or talk badly about others who feel proud to be who they are and where they are, especially because the Black Americans have been made to feel ashamed in their own country for existing. Even to this day, people will shout, go back to where you came from. And it's like, bro, my family's been here longer than you. You came in the 40s. You're Irish. You know what I mean? We see this play out so much in so many of the discussions dealing with the diaspora. British people not having the ability to understand that we are Americans stems from the fact that they see America as a white place, the same way England is a white place. And to further remove us from ownership of our identity here by saying you can't use the flag just aids that erasure.
This is going to blow your mind. Grace Wisher's story will change the way you see the Star-Spangled Banner. Grace Wisher was an African-American girl, born around 1800, who played a crucial role in creating the iconic Star-Spangled Banner. At just 13, she worked alongside Mary Pickersgill, stitching the flag that inspired America's national anthem. Despite her significant contributions, Grace's presence wasn't depicted in historical paintings of the flag-making process. Today, historians and cultural institutions are striving to honor her legacy. At the Star-Spangled Banner Flag House in Baltimore, a ghost figure now symbolically represents Grace's role. Exhibitions and educational programs are bringing her story to light, recognizing her as an integral part of American history. Grace Wisher's story is a powerful reminder of the overlooked contributions of African Americans in shaping the early United States. Let's ensure her work on the Star-Spangled Banner is remembered and celebrated as a vital part of American heritage.
So, I mean, look at America. Whatever unique cultural contribution that's come from America, it's come from the poor, from the underclass, from African Americans, from poor whites, from immigrants, and so on. From gospel music to blues music to R&B, to jazz, rap, and hip hop, and so on. And then on the other side of the coin, bluegrass, country music, rockabilly, rock and roll, and so on. All of these things came from the poor, from the working class. And from John Steinbeck to James Baldwin, your best writers all emerged from poverty and deprivation. Historically, the same goes for most of your acclaimed athletes, your entertainers, and your performers. And then your style and fashion and slang and everything. Creativity has always come from the poor. The rich mine the resources of their talent, the same way that they would mine copper or lithium or gold, and then profit from it, enrich themselves, and claim it and act like it's part of their own greatness.